Barnett, our mayor of Ludington. Thank you for coming in this morning.
Thanks for the time.
Absolutely. Let's talk with two of you and talk about some things that are going to be on the city council meeting tonight. Starts at 6 p.m. That's pretty much going to be the plan for going forward, is that 6 o'clock mark. Does that change in the summer, Mitch, at all?
No, we moved it forward from 6:30 to 6 2 years ago, year and a half ago now. Just it was easier. I mean, and frankly, if it's during the summertime, people can actually get outside and enjoy the weather a little bit. And if it's wintertime, you're not driving through perfect, darkness weather. Mm-hmm. So it just kind of helps in both seasons.
All right. So tonight you can show up at the city council meeting, express your viewpoint in any of the topics that we talk about or anything else as well that you want to see chatted about. This morning we'll talk about the federal railway grant that's going to be talked about tonight. Lot splits, the amendment to the residential rental inspection. We'll talk about some streets that are going to be renamed or proposed to be renamed. Mr. Mayor, we're going to be talking about the second time that the recall for you is up and what that means for you and your response. We'll also talk a little bit about the state park and what that how is that going to affect the city of Ludington and anything that might be on the surface being talked about to kind of compensate a little bit for that, because with the state park being closed for 10 months, that's still valuable tourist time and to attract people to the area. We just went through sort of a half a season of the Badger, and now to have this on the horizon, does that hurt? And how can we accommodate a little bit of that for that loss there? So let's kind of jump right into it, if you don't mind. And for listeners and viewers, you can always ask questions on our Facebook pages, either at the WMOM Facebook page or the Hot Country Hits Facebook page. Just comment there, and we'll try to share that on the air this morning. Let's talk about this for a moment. The Federal Railway grant. Mitch, what's going on there?
So the Genesee and Wyoming rail line through the Pierre Marquette Rail has been applying for the last 2 cycles for this Federal Railway Administration grant to help. It's about a $27 million project. They'd like to upgrade the rail line or the rail yard here in Ludington, kind of on the south side of town here. And they'd also like to improve the line itself between Ludington and Baldwin and then down to Grand Rapids. They service Martin Marietta up in Manistee. They service OxyChem here. There's a likelihood that when it's the potash plant over in Everett gets underway, that they will build a spur over there. So it's a big deal. Last year, or the last cycle, I should say, they lost out to the Manistee rail line relocation up north. And so now we're hoping that this time around, the city has to apply on behalf of the rail line. That's just the way that these grants work. And so that's what tonight is to say, yes, we're willing to apply on the rail line's behalf again.
And from trains coming through the actual city of Ludington, that really doesn't happen, right? There's no edges of the city that's affected by that, or is there?
There is. Once you get on the south side of town, kind of into the 4th Ward, in up a little bit, you've got OxyChem that has rail lines or rail cars that go in and out of that property.
Okay.
But within the city, you hardly ever see it just because it's on the south end of 6th or 7th Street down there. And so those rail lines directly go right across PM Highway. So we hardly ever see them, but it impacts our community pretty impressively.
Does it? Because the only reason I ask that is there or was there a Rails to Trails program that was here in the Ludington area, or was that the only rail line that would have happened?
So that'd be the only rail line that a Rails to Trails would have happened on. There were old ones that went out to the state park actually back in the day. Okay. Right behind where Schmock's Landscaping is, there was a kind of a angled line that went out towards Epworth and the state park. Mm-hmm. But that's been long abandoned for just split up amongst the property owners.
Okay. Now, this obviously it's a grant, so we're not talking about any sort of budgetary issues or anything coming from the city of Ludington budget when it comes to this project, right?
Nope, nothing along those lines. We have, between myself and Heather Tekowski, our community development director, we have probably a couple of hours into the whole process because they put the grant application together. We just submit it. And then, depending upon if we get it or not, then we do some wrap-up or follow-up discussions. But it's pretty easy on our end.
Okay. All right. We're talking with the mayor of Ludington and Mitch Foster, the city manager of Ludington. Mr. Mayor, lot splits. Let's chat about that for a moment, if you don't mind. There's is there a lot of conversation in regards to the splitting of lots here in the city of Ludington?
Well, probably primarily at the planning commission, but one of the things that the intent is here is to allow for development to happen. Of course, as material costs go up, time is money, and so when you have a process that involves both the planning commission and the committees the appropriate committee that would be involved there, as well as a standing committee of the city council, then city council, and then all the time frames and lag time and meeting dates and that type of thing, it turns into a fairly long time process. And so we're hoping to make it more of an administrative process, if council agrees, to allow folks to get those things taken care of. And
people say hi. Yeah.
And anyway, so to help developers out. Yep.
Talking about development, is there anything that has been approached by to the city council that we could talk about this morning? Any sort of projects on the horizon in 2024? I passed where the old Michael's is, and I see the elevator shaft that's been put up there. There's some construction happening, with the early spring, if you want to call it right now. That might lead to some projects getting done earlier than expected. Are those conversations happening, Mitch, at all?
Oh yeah, it's ongoing conversations with different developers and builders. I would say the Andes project is moving along nicely. The elevator shaft is pretty much finished. They're going to be moving to the west stairwell next. That'll be enclosed in that block, and then hopefully you'll start to see some steel going up. But we try to keep, and this is no offense to the radio or to the public, but we try to keep, when people start asking, especially big projects, you can't put too much out there too early, just because, especially when they're in the early phases of reviewing a project site, if something doesn't come through, then people get cranked up as to why it didn't happen. And they might blame the developer or the city. So instead, we try to hold those cards in until the developer's ready to announce, and then we do that together. And so as of right now, we've got nothing brand new crazy happening, but you never know. Things change pretty rapidly.
All right. If you're just joining us, we're talking with Mitch Foster, city manager of Ludington, Mark Barnett, and it's a perfect example. You have a cluster that happened right out there on the other side from Urca that is just a mess that has just stopped, and I don't see that project. Is there going to be a cleanup with it? Obviously, that affects a little bit of the city of Ludington. I know it's outside of the city, but it's the idea that this is the Ludington area, and we just have train cars there. We have dirt that's all dug up, and there's nothing happening there. I would assume you are in the loop a little bit on that and what's happening there.
Yeah, so that was supposed to be is supposed to be a Hampton Inn. I believe it's 100 rooms, about half long-term stay, half short-term stay. They had a problem, and I believe are still dealing with a problem with the state of Michigan when it comes to wetlands. And so they got started, and then the state came down on them. And so the project construction team, I believe, went to Alpena to finish a project up there while they work through the state of Michigan. And once that's done, then they'll come back and continue to work on it.
And there's a chance that they won't get that approval from the state of Michigan, or will they?
Well, I think no matter what, they probably will. However, there might just be some additional costs or some mitigation measures they might have to do. That's an Amber Township project. I'll leave that to Tom Allway to talk about. But in general, the state's, once something happens like that, the state typically is more apt to work with you, especially when it's the circumstances. There was an old retention pond on the site, and the developers believed they could reuse it. Well, it had all of a sudden grown some cattails and some other native species that the state didn't want them to use, and that's what this impasse is all about. And so hopefully they can resolve it.
All right. Let's talk about the amendment to the residential rental inspection program. That tends to either get people in a frizzy or not. when it comes to the inspection of their rental property. What's happening there, and could we see any issues or additional costs or anything like that?
Generally, for most renters across the Ludington area and landlords, they won't see a change. However, we had a kind of a carve-out within our ordinance for those properties that were HUD properties, or housing and urban development. So if they received vouchers and those sorts of things, and they received a housing quality inspection, an HQS, we exempted them from the process, or from the vast majority of the process, as long as we got the inspection form that was supposed to be done on a regular basis. Well, that hasn't been happening, and we're getting reports from some folks that some of these places are in pretty rough shape. And so the Building and Licensing Committee decided that they wanted to try to treat them fairly, just like everybody else. And so we are removing that exemption for those HQS type properties, which includes places like Pineway, like Longfellow Towers. So they will have to start being inspected by the city. But it's not all of the units, and it's not every year that those units are inspected. And so we try to work with the property owners, the landlords, and the property managers to make sure that everything's fair for everybody, and frankly, that people have a safe and secure place to live.
All right. And let's talk about street changes. So the names, Mr. Mayor, we'll chat with you about that. The Clayton Court to 2nd Street, Blue Heron is going through some changes as well. Let's break that down this morning, if you don't mind.
The 2nd Street change, or if council agrees to this, is just simply to make clear. I don't know if it's on maps, but I think the address is a 2nd Street address, I believe, or I could be wrong. Anyways, to make it consistent with one of the addresses that's currently being used in some ways. In other ways, people will look for the current name and can't find it and get confused. So it just makes sense to extend 2nd Street east or west of Washington.
When it comes to that, Mitch, for changing a street name, what sort of process is that from a local and even from a regional government standpoint?
Yeah, so the process is fairly easy on our end. I mean, straightforward. There's a resolution that council approves that designates and changes the street name. As long as residents are aware of it, or property owners, because you've got address changes that happen on a lot of things. Thankfully, a lot of those folks are using 2nd Street already. They weren't using Clayton Court, but Clayton Court was the address that was used formally and officially. Okay. So it's a weird circumstance, but thankfully, it's an easy, straightforward adjustment. We then write it in on our Act 51 map and add that as a resolution attached to it that says, hey, this has been approved or will be approved tonight at the council meeting. Let's sign off on it and turn that in when we turn in our road certification map.
All right.
Yep.
Same thing with Blue Heron as well. Break that down if you don't mind.
So it's the property, it's Washington Woods or Bryant Woods, depending upon who you are, what you call it, up there on the northwest corner of Washington and Bryant. The developer up there has built the second half of what I would refer to as the condominium development up there, kind of the west side. And so it's really just an extension of Blue Heron Court to be a full loop. And so hopefully we can get that approved tonight so that we can have that road officially on our maps so we can actually take care of it and receive reimbursement from the state. And second thing is hopefully I look forward to seeing the developer sell off some of those lots and start to see some building happening up there too.
All right. Next couple of things that we're going to be chatting about, Mr. Mayor. Have you ever wanted to be a pirate? No?
I want to hear the corny jokes, so that'd be the one deal breaker.
You've got some pirate jokes, I'm telling you. But in regards to this, the Ludington Pirate Heads, they have the Buccaneer Bash that they're coming in front of council about, and talking about their gaming license tonight. Take us through, that's just kind of a standard process, I would assume, right? Because it's been a tradition here? Yep,
just the same as it's been in recent years, and it's just an administrative thing that they need to take before council and make sure that the permits and all the things that they're going to do to hold the event are done.
All right, and we have some construction. I know that always piques interest when we're talking about construction, and that's potentially there on Lakeshore Drive to William Street, the Tinkham area. Mitch, break that down for us this morning.
Yep. So we get to tear up the road right in front of the mayor's house. We've been working on this project for about 6 months. These big reconstruction projects take a long period of time because a good chunk of the funding comes through the state of Michigan through their small urban grant. And so we have to submit a lot of things in advance. But starting this year, hopefully this spring, summer, we'll see Tinkham reconstructed from Lakeshore Drive to William. So that means the little water and sewer infrastructure that's out under the ground will be done and replaced and repaired. And then we'll be redoing the roadway surface, the curbs. We're going to be adding some sidewalk there and some sidewalk approaches, especially we're going to try to do some work around Oriole Field to improve the accessibility there. We're not going to be doing a full sidewalk on that side just because the pitch and the elevation changes right at the field are a little tough. But we will be doing some sidewalk approaches for folks that go to football games, soccer games, track meets, those sorts of things.
All right. And when is that supposed to start?
We don't have the final we just got bids in last week or 2 weeks ago now. So we don't have construction timeline started, but I would say probably first part of spring we'll get rolling.
Okay.
Yep. I mean, not this spring. The next, whenever real spring hits.
Yeah, when the winter stops. All right. We're talking with Mitch Foster, City Manager of Ludington, and Mark Barnett, Mayor of Ludington, this morning. South Madison, I would assume this is kind of right by the bridge area. There's been some activity in that area with the campsites and such. They've got some rezoning that is happening in that area. Mitch, we'll start with you. Mayor, we'll follow up with you.
Sorry. Yeah, so we have a developer who submitted a request to the council a few months back, for approval of a pilot agreement, which is a payment in lieu of taxes for the old depot property. And so they are now, they got their first round of scoring back, which was fairly positive in their minds. And so they're moving forward the project, and they have applied for a PUD and a rezoning, or rezoning then a PUD, to allow for them to build potentially 2 big units or 2 big facilities, 40 units each, right there at the old depot site. It's about a 3.5 acre, 4 acre site, so it's big. But they're going through these steps so that if they are awarded these tax credits to help bring the cost of the project down quite a bit, they can get rolling first thing in the fall, hopefully.
And what are they building?
It'd be 40. The first phase of the project that they're focused on is about 40 units of low to moderate income housing. So focused on those people that make between, I believe the numbers are 40 to 80% of the area median income.
Okay.
So it hits a big chunk of people.
And how tall will that be?
4 stories is the draft sketch as of right now.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
And looking forward to following up with that. Obviously, housing is an issue in many communities, especially in the Ludington area. Mr. Mayor, there was a petition to recall you by Tom Rada that the canvassing board, the elections board,
Commission,
the commission, reviewed that, determined that the verbiage was not accurate or in the right way to move that forward. That did not stop Tom Rada from coming up with a second round of this. Do you mind responding to where this stands and in general how you feel about now a second approach to this?
Sure. First of all, where it stands is on February 20th at 3 p.m. in the commissioner's room at the Mason County Courthouse. There'll be a second clarity hearing for this revised language on the second petition. And that will allow the petition sponsor to officially present their language, and it'll allow me to respond to what I believe relative to the clarity. Then the petition sponsor will be able to speak again, and the commission will render a decision as to whether or not the petition language is clear. And the reason it's important is because anytime you circulate something, you want to, for removal of a public official from office or a vote to do that, you want to make sure that the language that the petitioners are going to sign is accurate, is clear. And so sometimes people, as I understand it, sometimes people get mistaken as to the real purpose of the clarity hearing, and it's really just to make sure that the language is clear. Then that allows the petitioner to then go and circulate the petition for signatures. If they have enough confirmed Ludington voter signatures, then it can be placed on the ballot for a removal vote.
All right, and this is obviously tied in with the deer call effort, your property there at Tinkham, and to use your property as part of the deer call. But it also goes back just a little bit further, and that is the process of convincing the city council to approve this. And so I don't know if I asked this question to you, Mitch, last time, but I'll ask it this time, is the mayor is separate of the city council, obviously. And so before I even ask the question, can you break that down for the listeners, how that structure of the city government works?
I'm going to say this in a way that the mayor may not like, but it's just the reality in Ludington. The mayor kisses babies, the mayor runs the meetings, and the mayor breaks ties. Beyond that, the power for the city of Ludington rests with city council to direct the city manager. It's pretty straightforward. Beyond that, the mayor can advocate for certain things. He can ask council to consider something. They can go out in public and give speeches and that sort of thing. Generally, they ask for council or conference ahead of time. But generally, the mayor is a figurehead type position, and that's the role that was directed in the charter. And so. Yeah, that's kind of where it's at right now.
And so let me ask this question, because it's on the 28th. Is that correct?
20th.
20th.
Yep.
So between now, you won't be back in the studio before that time frame. But the residents of Ludington are going to be asking the question in the procedures, in the way the city government works. Did the mayor do anything wrong in regards to the deer call? Do you mind answering that?
Sure. From a procedural standpoint, nothing has been done wrong as of right now. And I say as of right now only because the deer call hasn't happened yet. But no, the mayor can ask or suggest or I think the language that was used before, coerced. I mean, the mayor can say whatever they wish at any point in time during a council meeting. They run the meetings. And so if the mayor had simply said, what's everybody's thoughts on deer call, which is essentially what was said, that's okay. There's nothing that prevents that from happening. And then it goes back to committee, and committee says, all right, we're going to look at a deer call. We're going to direct staff to re-engage this process, and that's what happened. And then council agreed with that. We're going to re-engage the process. So, council ends up voting for these issues. The mayor, unless there's a tie, which means someone's out that night, doesn't have a vote or a choice in that matter.
And we see this in forums across the country where that city council, if you're watching city council via live stream or in person, you see that there's conversations between all levels of government in that particular case, including those that are chief of police, fire, and others that are brought in. So, Mr. Mayor, can I ask, and this is the last question I'll ask of you of this matter, and that is, do you feel that you did anything or infringed on any issue that would be a concern of the city government or the population of Ludington?
I would say that's a matter of perspective. I think from the petition sponsor's perspective, I did horrendously wrong things because it doesn't agree with the petition sponsor's opinion. It's what do they say? Opinions are like belly buttons. Everybody has one, and so relative to somebody that's agreed to put their name forward and to represent people, that every a number of people have one opinion, and other number of people have another opinion on this very same issue. it was clear to me that before that this was a situation, the deer call was a situation that was on people's minds. I mean, during my campaign, they talked about it. During the last year, they've talked about it. Please do something about the deer. So there's this group of people that aren't out carrying picket signs or aren't out recalling people, that just simply wants government to work and solve a problem. And so, in my mind, no, I didn't do anything wrong. In my mind, I'm representing another group of people with a different opinion than the petition sponsor. So, like I said, it's a matter of perspective.
All right, and Mitch, this question has come up though, to facilitate a deer call within the city. When you have homes on either side of the mayor's or the other homes that are part of this, how do you keep those other residents on the other side of the fence, physical fence, right, safe?
So, thankfully, I'm not the one out there shooting. Because that would not be a good idea, because I'm not a professional and I do not do this for a living. We have hired the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Animal and Wildlife Services Division to do this, and they do this weekly, daily, regularly. Whether that's at major international airports, whether that is on national forest property, whether that is in urban center cities such as East Lansing, Ann Arbor, other places. They have done this for decades. And in my conversations with them, especially our state director, they have not had a single instant of negative outcomes. And that is because when they see something that doesn't smell or feel right, they stop. They don't do anything further. We will notify directly adjacent property owners, kind of, hey, here's the general time frame as to when this will occur. If you hear kind of popping noises, this is why. But generally, they go out, they scope out these sites in advance, they bait in advance in specific locations, and they set themselves up in specific locations so they have either backstops or good angles for the removal. And again, I think folks will continue to, they compare it to hunting, obviously, because that's the easiest comparison, but it's not hunting. These folks don't go out there and wait. They will run from site to site as they hear or see deer on cam. And then they will use their night vision or their thermal imaging alongside with the baiting and the ATVs and trucks that they will get around on throughout the city and throughout Cartier Park and other locations to make sure that they take care of this properly. And the goal is, frankly, no one knows the night that they're out there because they've come in, they've removed a number of deer, and then they've cleaned up and left without everybody knowing. And then hopefully we're able to donate that meat to the Lakeshore Food Club.
All right. I appreciate you addressing that, because that is a concern that has come up, is, the safety of other residents in the area. And you would assume that because this team does that in larger cities,
absolutely,
that it makes sense to how they could facilitate that. I have one more question in regards to this, and Mayor, I apologize about putting you on the spot for a moment here, but I want to try to address some of these questions. Mitch, if the petition goes through and there is a recall, the effort, what does that look like for the citizens of Ludington? And is there anything that the mayor can do in his support to if there's anybody on the fence in regards to this?
Oh, now we're getting questions that I may not have answers to or may not feel comfortable answering, Chris. But I will say, generally, so if the petition if the election commission is comfortable with the petition language, the mayor does have a period of time that he can appeal that if they decide in the petitioner's favor. I believe it's a 45-day period after that decision. And then if he appeals, it goes again, has opportunity to be reheard. I think in circuit court, he's going to have to clarify this for me. And if not, then the petition can be circulated at that point in time. Okay. I know there's a time frame again that they can have the petition circulated, and then they have to meet a certain time frame in order for it to get on. Again, I believe the November election for that. Okay. But that'll be a Clerk Deb Luskin question or Clerk Cheryl Kelly.
And Mayor, I don't want you to feel uncomfortable with these conversations. Obviously, you're in a situation where it deals directly to you, with you. But there's got to be some sort of message that, and knowing you in the past few years that I have known you, I would assume that this is not trying to cloud your decision making, your moving forward, representing the city of Ludington. And I would assume that we don't see you stepping down out of frustration, that this would be something that you can weather and get through. Is that your goal?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I made a promise to people that if they elect me, support me, and vote for me, that I would serve them for the 4 years that they elected me for. And so that's my intention. It clearly is not the intention of the petitioner, but again, it's a difference of opinion. And so I guess I would just ask folks to, if it gets to the point where they have a petition before them to sign to remove the mayor from office, me in particular, but there's other individuals that have been and will continue to be apparently recalled. So I would ask folks that as they look at that petition to see whether or not it makes sense for a difference of opinion to remove that person from office. And if it makes sense, then sign the petition. It'll go on the ballot, and then people will vote. If it doesn't make sense, there's no reason to sign something that you don't think makes sense. I mean, we make personal decisions every day of our life, and some people agree with, some that won't. And so I just ask folks to thoughtfully consider it when it's put before them, if it's put before them, and just go from there.
All right.
I appreciate them giving them that much thought to it.
Absolutely. And we appreciate you taking these questions. And
Sure.
This might be the last time we talk about it. It just depends on what happens, the next steps there. I have a couple more questions for the two of you. You've got some action items on the agenda tonight. Before we get to that, the Ludington State Park is going to be closing in September of this year, opening up in July of next year. That's a long time. It's 10 months of reconstruction there. Hopefully we can get Mr. Galloway on with us, and we'll chat about that. They put out a very detailed project, answering some questions and stuff like that on their Facebook page. I know Ludington Daily News put something out there, basically copied what they put out there on Facebook. And so from a city standpoint, are you worried about this?
Well, I think anytime you have a facility that has 1 million visitors a year, give or take, and they're going to be shut down for kind of the latter part of one season, the start of the next season, it's a concern, no doubt. What I will say, to folks that live here or visit and those sorts of things, parts of the state park are still going to be accessible, so people can still get out there to Nordhaus Dunes. They can still get to the South Side trails and those sorts of things. However, I think the CVB and Chamber, along with the state park and others, are trying to get out there early and often to talk about this and what are some alternatives and what do we need to talk about to make sure people still continue to visit and locals still continue to go out to the state park and patronize it. However, just like during COVID, and I hope pre-COVID and post-COVID, it doesn't matter if we don't get those visitors as long as people here still patronize the businesses. And I think that was important during COVID that we recognize that, and I think we still need to recognize that in order to make sure that our businesses that are here, that are owned by people locally, stay in business, we have to go to them. We have to spend our money here.
But my concern is that, up until when these emergencies, if you want to call it that, happen, I don't see any effort really of whoever's responsibility that is to say, hey, we talk about shopping local and we have a small business Saturday and stuff like that. But really, truly, majority of the focus is visitors in the tourism and such. Who's going to step up now, and what do you think that will look like, since it really hasn't been happening? You know what I mean? And I'm talking about a major push to get the locals out, because if you talk to restaurant owners anywhere in this area, you can shoot a shotgun through that restaurant, but there's no effort to especially in the wintertime. So how do you answer that? Because the wintertime will be there.
Yeah, oh yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think part of the question is the responsibility has to be it's twofold, right? Or actually threefold. We have our advertising marketing organizations like the DDA, the Chamber, the CVB, those sorts of things. We also have businesses that have to do their own part, right? And local residents. It has to be threefold. We have to work together on these things. And I would push back a little bit that the vast majority of our marketing efforts goes towards tourists and visitors, because we don't do the Super Bowl walk or the chili walk or those sorts of things for visitors, because they're done in the wintertime. We don't do the chocolate walk. We don't do those sorts of items.
But the percentage of advertising dollars are outside of the market.
But that is simply because the CVB has a responsibility under the statute to spend dollars on marketing to bring people in. That is simply what a CVB is. It's a Convention and Visitors Bureau. And so when they have a budget that's close to $1 million, that dwarfs everything else, right? And so I think that's part of it. During COVID, there was the big push, and I think we've continued to keep that push along. The goal really is to make a community great for the people that live here, and then it's really good for people to visit too. Mm-hmm. That's ideally what you're trying to create, and so I think that's what we have to continue to create. With the Badger coming online at the latest of June 14th or June 12th, and hopefully sooner if their project, decent weather, their project moves along quicker. I think that will help get things moving back in the normal direction. And the same thing with the state park. Their project could move quicker as well. But no matter what, we've got to work together as a community to push through this and support one another as we move forward.
Do you see projects, Mr. Mayor, coming back like Friday nights that used to be here, Friday Night Live and such? Could we see new events within that time frame, or is it going to be try to get through that as quickly as possible?
Well, I think that necessity is the mother of invention, right? As one particular attraction or attractive entity maybe has less capacity for a period of time, then there are others that are going to open up, and there's other opportunities. Maybe you're talking about more day trips as opposed to people camping for a long period of time, and so I think that those are things that I think everybody is looking for opportunities to do, whether it's a restaurant or an attraction here, creating a special event or a special event thing to draw people. They can certainly do that. There's other venues where people will stay. People coming up here, as I said, day trip from Traverse City, from Grand Rapids, from Muskegon, from really Detroit, and that type of thing. So I think that there's going to be a number of different options that people will envision, just like it did. We had no advance warning with COVID, right? Mm-hmm. So you look back, and the numbers I think are probably not as dire. I think that they were much more positive than people expected during COVID. Not to say they were perfect, not to say that we'd hope that happened again, but the reality of it is that people were they overcame, right? And so I think there's going to be a lot of that going on that we maybe don't even envision right now.
And part of the action items tonight, you're going to be talking about the Live in the Plaza. That's going to be new, or in the
Live in the Alley.
Thank you, in the alley there. That's going to be new. But even in the Plaza, you saw 40 to 80 people, maybe 100 people in that. But you've 9,000 residents or here. Are those going to be the items that we're going to allow to carry through that? The state park was voted one of the best, if the top attractions here in the area. You've got you're going to be talking tonight about Live in the Plaza. You're going to be talking about the you've got the Love Ludington weekend that's going to come back. You've got the Oktoberfest. You've got the Halloween, downtown Halloween, Small Business Saturday, some regular events there. And I know it's early. I understand that it's early. Yep. To say, hey, we just found out about this, or the conversations are happening. But do you find yourself or others leading the effort to give? Because when the Badger canceled their season, we had hotels that said they lost in a single day 75 rooms here. Others bed and breakfast. It just wiped it out, and that could be a major concern coming into that season.
You're absolutely right. I think the one advantage we have is the area is still beautiful, and you can still get here. The Badger changes the ability for people to get here. And while the state park does have a number of people that go out there on a regular basis, Hamlin Lake will still be accessible, which is a big draw for the state park. The dunes will still be accessible off of Piney Ridge or on the south side. And so I think the ability to get here is still there. And we have a number of great campgrounds beyond the state park that are around Mason County and just over the county line that can absorb some of that impact. I know, Russ Soper at our Cartier Park campground has already had an increase in the number of calls. And so I'm sure that's the same case with Vacation Station and others at Poncho's Pond. And so I think that we'll be able to take that up. And to be honest, I've camped. When you're camping, you're camping. You don't come in. I think the Badger was a massive hit for hotels and restaurants because when you stay at a hotel, you don't have a kitchen. You don't have a campfire to cook over. And so I think there are differences. And hopefully the Badger, continue to open up earlier and earlier this year, hopefully. That prepares them for next year and for this fall to where that coming back helps us adjust, but also it gives us a little bit of time this spring and summer to prepare for the fall and to prepare for early season next year. Because even though the state park only has a handful of folks that are year-round, it's really those shoulder seasons for us locally where they have a number of people that stay out there and through the summer that go to the state park for whatever reason that we need to prepare for. And I know, Brandy Miller's getting ready for it. I know the DDA and Tom Hawley's getting ready for it. And I'm sure other agencies and organizations across the county are preparing to have those discussions. And the one, I think that will take the biggest hit is going to be SPLCA, the Sable Point Lighthouse Keepers Association. With not having access to the lighthouse, that is a big deal for them. That's a big revenue source for them on an annual basis. They're going to have their 100th year celebration this year, but next year is going to be a big deal. And so, we talk about supporting folks locally. Also support your local nonprofits that are hit when things like this pop up.
Absolutely. And we look forward to that. And the reason why I bring up the conversation today is that you want to be able to get that word out to the community and communities that, we want to be able to invite Scottville and Manistee and Pentwater and Hart and other areas into the city of Ludington and not just rely on Grand Rapids or Detroit or other areas,
right.
But I think just making sure that the locals are heard more and more. So we appreciate that. I know you've got some action items. You've got city council meeting tonight. We went a very long time this morning, but I appreciate both of you coming in, addressing a lot of this and making sure that the community is abreast. And even if it's an early stage of some of these conversations,
right.
It's an opportunity that maybe somebody that's listening can say, you know what, I've always wanted to do this in the city of Ludington, and maybe can approach, the chamber or the DDA or the city council and be able to explore those ideas for that window of time. So, and again, the state park it's all. I mean, there's other activities and things to do in and around Ludington, but at least we're having the conversation.
Absolutely. And I had a conversation via text while I was out of the country with a local, operator of a nonprofit. He's got some really interesting ideas to borrow from some other communities about, how can we bring in particular, some non-alcoholic events, family friendly that are, like Friday Night Live, but more specific that can help raise money for nonprofits, but also go back to, having a really fun atmosphere downtown. And I think there's ways that we can really add different events and frankly allow some of our, organizations that are in our community to run these events. It doesn't always have to be the DDA or the city or the chamber putting these events on. Maybe we can help facilitate and help kind of put some guideposts up and somebody can run with it because they've got a bunch of people that are interested in doing X. Great.
Okay.
Let's do that.
It's very, very, very good information there, and it's important. And we just announced a couple of weeks ago that we got the approval from the Fair Board to put the drive-through lights display back in the area. So we're looking forward to that this November and December. It's been 20 years, but people still talk about that. We appreciate the Fair Board approving that, and we look forward to being. And that's just one of those things in the wintertime, just as much as we need those summer activities as well. So we appreciate both of you coming in. Thank you, Mitch Foster, City Manager of Ludington,
Thank
for
you,
taking
Chris.
some time. Yep. And Mr. Mayor, thank you as well. And I understand that sometimes conversations are uncomfortable, but we appreciate you addressing it. And sometimes, as you know, as being somebody in the public light, that people attack you, and that's just what we have. And it's good to have tough skin. It's good to be able to be in front of the camera in this particular case, or on the radio, to address that. So we appreciate you doing that this morning.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. It is 9:18, 18 minutes after the hour here on 102.7 Mom FM.